everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel once again. I hope all of you are doing well. This is Eliza and today I'm going to talk about powers. Well, getting started with the chapter, let's take an example of 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Okay, so this is the question which I have. Now, when I'm talking about powers, it means something, a number should be there at the top, a number should be there at the bottom, and a number should be there at the top. So this is called a power, okay? So 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, it can actually be written as 3 to the power of 4. What is that same number that we have here? That same number is 3. So I'm writing the 3. And how many 3's are there? There are 4 3's. So 3 to the power of 4. That is called to the power, right? Now, this 3 over here, this is called a base. Okay? And the 4 over here is known as exponent. Okay, please check the spelling to increase your mathematics vocabulary. So this 4 over here, it can be called exponent. As I have talked before about this part, it can also be called the power. There is another name for it. It can also be called as the index. Okay, so it has got 3 names. Again, an example, 2 to the power of 3. We call it in this way, 2 to the power of 3, okay? Or I can call it 2 raised to the power of 3, okay? 2 raised to the power of 3. Or it can be called third power of 2. Or it can also be called 2 cubed. Okay? There are 3 ways to represent this. If you want to find out the value of 2 cube, you can definitely do that. So 2 cube means, what is the number that we have as the base? That is 2, right? So 2 is going to be repeated. How many times? 3 times. So I draw 3 blanks. That is going to make it more easier. I see the power, I draw so many lines, okay? And then I write this base, okay? So in this case, the base is 2. So I write 2 times 2 times 2, which is going to give me 8 as the answer. So that is the basic knowledge about powers, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a few formulas which are very important to do the sums of powers, or rather it is going to make the sums much more easier. Okay, so if you have another question before I get started with the formula, let me give you another question. If I have something like this, 2 negative 2 to the power of 3, okay? So the question that we have done previous to this was, let me go back to that real quick. Okay, so it was 2 to the power of 3. So that means it is 2 times 2 times 2. But now what we are doing is negative 2 raised to the power of 3. Negative 2 raised to the power of 3. What do we do in this case? In this case, the power or the exponent is equal to 3. That means we draw 3 lines. And what is the same number that has been repeated? That is 2. Or rather, a negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So we know that 2 times 2 times 2 is equal to 8. What's bothering us over here is the negative sign. So friends, in case you remember, I have given you the formulas when we multiply two negative signs or two positive signs or a negative sign with a positive sign. So let's do a revision of that quickly. When we multiply a positive sign with a negative sign, the answer is negative. When we multiply a negative sign with a positive sign, the answer is still negative. When we multiply a negative sign with a negative sign, it gives us a positive answer. A positive sign with a positive sign multiplication, it gives us a positive answer. So when the signs are same and we multiply them, we get a positive answer. When the signs are different and we multiply them, we get a negative answer. So let's get started with this sign first. Negative times negative, times is here, okay? Negative times negative gives us a positive answer. That positive times negative is going to give me a negative answer. So my final answer is going to be negative 8. Okay, so it's not going to worry you much. If you have the formulas in your mind, you can definitely jot down the formulas in a separate notebook and keep a track of the formulas. So when you have it in your mind, these sums get really easy. Now, moving on to the next question I have is this. Okay, let me erase this up really quick for you. And there we go. Okay, so the first formula, which is a to the power of 0 is equal to 1. That is the first formula. I'm going to make the formulas inside the box so that you can know this is the one that you have to write it down. A to the power of 0 is equal to 1. A to the power of 1 is equal to A to the power of 1 is equal to 1. What does that mean? That means that A can be of any value. So A is the variable over here. Variable means it doesn't have any constant value. It can be of any value. So suppose A is equal to 2. Okay, 2 to the power of 0. 2 to the power of 0, that means 2 is not getting repeated any number of times. So that gives us 1 as the answer. Okay. The next one, 2 to the power of 1. I should correct myself over here. A to the power of 1 gives us A. So 2 to the power of 1 is, I should have just one blank. Right? And what is my base? My base is 2. So the answer is just a 2. So these are the formulas that you should keep in mind. Let me mark those in red and make it a little bit bold. So this is the first formula that I have for you. And this is the second one. Okay, and this is a 0. A raised to the power of 0 equals 1. A raised to the power of 1 equals A. Now, what if I have something like this? Let's take a negative value because negative value is kind of interesting. If we have a negative 5 to the power of 0, what is the answer that you are going to get? Anything raised to the power of 0 will be equal to 1. So negative 5 raised to the power of 0 will also be equal to 1. Okay? Let me give you another example. I have 2/3. 2/3 raised to the power of 0. What is that going to be? That is also going to be 1. Okay, doesn't matter what the value is inside the bracket or the parentheses. Parentheses means brackets, okay? And these signs are called parentheses in US, and it is called brackets, which is used in UK, Canada, India. So these are called brackets in those countries. So if you have any number inside the bracket to the power of 0, that is equal to 1. For another one, the other example which was there, a raised to the power of 1 is equal to A. So negative 2 raised to the power of 1 will be equal to negative 2. 2/3 raised to the power of 1 will be equal to 2/3. Okay, that is how it goes. So now you know how the powers, they are going to work. I have shown you different kind of scenarios with negative numbers, with fractions, and positive numbers. Okay, now let's go and do another sum. So if we have a question like this, 5 times 2 times 3 cubed over, we have 3 times 3 times 2 times 5 cubed. Now, in order to solve this out, we must remember to do simplification, or we must know to do simplification. 5 times 2 times 3 cubed. 3 cubed, what does that mean? It means 3 times 3 times 3. The one which is raised to the power, we are going to put those many blanks, and the base we are going to write that number, over 3 times 3 times 2 times, we have 5 raised to the power of 3. That means 3 blanks. And what is the base? The base is 5. So we are going to write a 5. Okay. So following the rule of simplification, 3 and 3 cancels out, 3 and 3 cancels out from here, 2 and 2 cancels out, 2 and 2, okay. So we have 1 5 in the numerator and we have 3 5s in the denominator. Well, I need to cancel out 1 5. So what do I have at the numerator? I just have a 3. And as the denominator, what do I have? I have 5 times 5. So my final answer is going to be 3 5 squared, or you can definitely write that as 3 over 25. Because 5 squared means 5 times 5, that is equal to 25. Okay, so this is how you work out on the exponent sum. Now moving on to another sum. Just giving a scenario of another one. If I have a number 72, okay, and 72, we can definitely write that as 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Okay, now what does that mean? It means 2 raised to the power of 3, or we can call it 2 to the power of 3 times 3 to the power of 2, or 3 squared. 2 cubed times 3 squared. Okay, we can write it like this. I hope you understood till now whatever I have done. Moving to the next part. The next part shall be, okay, so moving on to another formula. The next formula would be, let me take a different color and write it inside the box. Okay, there we go. So I have a to the power of m times a to the power of n. Okay, in case we have this formula, we are going to write that as a to the power of m plus n. Okay, this is another formula which you should keep a track of. Giving an example, maybe a number with negative value, okay? So a negative value number, negative 5 raised to the power of 4 times negative 5, because a is equal to negative 5, right? Over here, a is equal to negative 5 raised to the power of, so m is equal to 4 and n is equal to maybe 2. Okay, what will be my answer? My answer will be negative 5 to the power of 4 plus 2. That is negative 5 raised to the power of 6. Either you can put the bracket or you cannot put the bracket. If you write it like this, that's still correct. If you put the parentheses or the back bracket, that is still correct, okay? So either way is correct. Now in case you want to find out the value, so what will you do in that case? In that case, What is the power? The power is 6. So you put 6 blanks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you put multiplication sign in between the blanks. There we go, okay. So what do we have as the base? The base is a negative 5. Negative 5, negative 5. Oopsie, I'm sorry. A negative 5, negative 5, negative 5, and negative 5. I'm not finding out the value at the moment, but I would definitely give you the sign concept. So let's work out on that. Negative times negative is equal to positive. Positive times positive. Positive times negative equals negative. Negative times negative equals positive. Positive times negative equals negative. Negative times negative is equal to positive. Whatever answer we have, the answer is going to bear a positive sign. Okay, so that's going to be a positive answer. Now, moving on to the next part. The next part will be, well, what if we have another formula that is a to the power of m over a to the power of n. So the base is same in both the cases, but the powers are different. So that would be a m minus n. Okay, if m is more than n. Got it? So this is one formula. Now, taking an example of this formula, and that would be, we have a to the power of 5 over a to the power of 3. In this case, a is equal to, okay, I did not take a value, right? Fine, it's okay. So in this case, a is equal to a, m is equal to 5, and n is equal to 3. So the answer would be a 5 minus 3, and that would give me a squared. Did you understand? That is an example. Or in case you want to put a value of a, that's also fine. 3 to the power of 7 over 3 to the power of 4. That would be 3 to the power of 7 minus 4. Just because 4 over here, the power here is at the denominator, we just take it to the top. When it is being taken to the top, it changes its sign. So it changes to a negative 4. So 3 going to the top, it changes its sign, it becomes a negative 3. So 4 going to the top, it changes its sign, it becomes a negative 3. Got it? So that would be 3 to the power of 3. So my answer is 3 cubed, which means 3 times 3 times 3, and that would give me a 27. Okay? Now, moving on to the next part, and that would be, should I take an eraser? Yes, let's take an eraser. I think that would be quicker. I don't know. Okay. So the next one would be, okay, a to the power of m divided by a to the power of n. What did we just study? A to the power of m minus n, right? That is one of the formulas. There can be another formula with the same thing. A to the power of m over a to the power of n. That can be written as 1 divided by a to the power of n minus n. Okay, now what happens in this scenario? I'm going to take an example and show it to you. So these are two separate formulas. Suppose we have a to the power of, in this case actually, m is more than n. Okay, and in this case, m is less than n. Okay, so these are two different cases we have already worked out on this one. Let's work out on this one. If m is less than n, so let's take a as 3, maybe. M is equal to 2, a is equal to 3, and n is equal to 5. So in that case, what happens? What if I want to take the 5 to the top? Let's work out in that way, okay? Or maybe I want to bring 2 to the bottom. I can also do that. So that would be 1 over 3 to the power of 5 minus 2. Because what happened over here, when n is changing its place, it is becoming minus, right? Now we are bringing down the 2 to the bottom. So that was a positive 2. When it comes down to the bottom, it becomes a negative 2. So that would be 1 to the power 1 divided by 3 to the power of 3. Got it? That is how it works. Let me show it in a different way now. I am taking this question once again. 3 squared. If I wanted to take this 5 to the top, that would be a negative 5, okay? In that case, my answer would be 3 to the power of negative 3. Now, 3 to the power of negative 3, that means 1 over 3 cubed. Let me write that formula for you, because while doing a sum, it gave rise to a different formula. What is that? A to the power of negative m means 1 over a to the power of n. Okay, that is another formula which we just discovered. That means if I take an example, 3 to the power of negative 2, that means we can write that as 1 over 3 squared. So that is going to be 1 over 9. So that would be my final answer. Okay. Well, the next formula. Well, a to the power of m. We have a parenthesis or a bracket as known in different countries, to the power of n. And the final answer would be a m times n. Okay, so this is the formula. I'm putting it inside a box for you to write it down. Let's take an example. A to the power of 5 whole cubed. That shall be a to the power of 5 times 3. So my final answer would be a to the power of 15. Okay, let's take another example. 3 to the power of negative 2, we have a 5 outside. What about that case? So that would be 3 negative 2 times 5. That would give rise to negative times positive gives us a negative answer. So that would be 3 raised to the power of negative 10, or we can write that as 1 over 3 to the power of 10. Okay. So friends, I guess that was all for today, till I come back with a new chapter some other day. So I would like to thank you so much for your support and help throughout. Well, you have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.